Hey, Flimsy Lunch Tray here, and welcome to World of Warships in our Saturday video, as we'll be doing an upgrade and commander build of the Prinz Heinrich today, the German Tier 7 battle cruiser, or battleship, but pretty much a battle cruiser, and you'll see why here in a moment as we go in to look at her armor. Now, it's always important when we're discussing ships, what type of ship are we talking about? Are we talking about a long-range sniper? We're talking about a mid-range battleship, 12, 15 kilometer range? Or are we talking about close quarters combat, a brawler? And that is what Prinz Heinrich is. Prinz Heinrich is a brawling, close quarters battleship, battle cruiser. And so ideally, I like to try to format the ship around her strengths rather than her weaknesses per se. But there are some things we can do to kind of help bolster her defense and survivability a little bit. So let's go ahead and talk about this armor layout, okay? So yesterday's video, I'll have two clips at the end. If you haven't seen these two battles, they both were insane. One of them was a solo warrior. The other one was we legit almost died and came clutch and getting the victory right at the end. So you can check those out. But one of the things you saw, particularly in the second one, is this weakness of the armor on the fore-end plating in the stern. So we have 25 millimeter on the bow and stern. So if there is an enemy battleship or even cruiser, for example, like the Leon in yesterday's video, he completely did like 11,000 damage to us in one salvo just because he focused on our stern, and he almost one-shotted us because of our health pool being so low. So that's something you really have to be conscious of. What you want to do is kind of angle, where you're kind of enticing them maybe to shoot more of your belt armor, where you can definitely bounce a lot of that. But with how the ship is a bit set up, it's kind of easy to eat damage a lot in the superstructure, just because it's not a tanky battleship. It's a battle cruiser. So there's got some weaknesses of that. So just know that your fore and aft end plating is weak and vulnerable. I'll strip away some of the armor here. You can see that the Citadel armor is actually looks like waterline. And I don't think we get the traditional turtle belt armor that you see on the German battleships. So that might be when we get to the higher tiers. But that is your Citadel. Goes all the way from the rear turret to the front turret. So the fact that it is waterline is nice because it means you're less likely to eat Citadels. I haven't noticed it too much just because I'm always trying to be conscious and angle. But in my time of playing it so far, I might have been Citadel once or twice when I was executing a turn. But it's hard to just because it's beneath the waterline. So just keep those things in mind when you are playing the Prinz Heinrich. So let's go and look at the modules. So you can see I have several things going on here. We have the Prinz Heinrich has these 380 millimeter guns. Reload time 30 seconds, 180 degree turn time of 24 seconds. HE shell damage 4,500, AP shell damage much higher, 10,900. You do get an upgrade from hull A to hull B. You can see the differences are pretty staggering here, where you can see your survivability goes up, torpedoes go up. The AA defense definitely gets a buff. It's pretty poor until you get to the hull B. Then it's just okay. It's still not great by any means. And then you even get an upgrade on your maneuverability. So that brings your health pool up to 56,300. And I think we have some more AA gun mounts as well. No, it's the same amount. Just AA just gets buffed. That's it. Torpedoes, you have these G7T1. They have a reload time of 110 seconds and a torpedo range of 10 kilometers. Maximum damage of 13,700, but they're pretty slow at 50 knots. But these are really nice, especially when you're just constantly throwing them out. You get one rack on each side, which I can just show you real quick where those torpedoes are. Right here, they kind of just stay tucked in, so they're not vulnerable like out on the ship deck. Because like something like I think it's Scharnhorst, when they're sitting out in the open, they often get disabled a lot, but you don't have the torpedoes get disabled much here. We can just look at Scharnhorst as a comparison, if my memory serves correctly. Yeah, so see here on Scharnhorst, torpedoes, they're out in the open. And so often when people are firing on your superstructure, they get knocked out. But on the Prinz Heinrich, you don't have that problem because of how the torpedoes are concealed here as part of your ship hull. So that's actually really nice. I like that. I don't have my torpedoes get knocked out so often on the Prinz Heinrich as comparison to something like the Scharnhorst or Organizer now. You do get an upgrade for the gunfire control system, where stock it's 15.8 kilometer range, or then you can get up to 17.4 kilometer. This is still not the greatest, especially at tier 7. If you find yourself bottom tier versus tier 9s, this begins to hurt a lot more in random battles when you're trying to maybe push in and brawl, and you're facing tier 9 ships. It just doesn't go as well. Usually in those situations, you want to wait to make the push to the last half of the battle, and just take your time and be patient the first half of the battle if you find yourself bottom tier. Propulsion, 28 knots. You can get a slight increase on this with the Sierra Mike combat signal. Upgrades, we have 4 slots. You can see for the first slot, we have the main armaments modification 1. This reduces the risk of the main battery and torpedoes from becoming incapacitated by negative 20%. Improves the main battery and torpedo tube survivability by plus 50%, and repair time of your main battery and torpedo tubes if they should become knocked out is reduced by negative 20%. So this is really nice because it's really helping keeping those main armaments between your main battery and your torpedoes in action. And I don't know if I've actually had my torpedoes knocked out, so it's nice having this on here just to further enhance to make sure that we keep those torpedoes alive and in action in case if you find yourself in a close quarters combat situation, we need torpedoes to finish off enemy battleship. Auxiliary armaments modification 1. This increases survivability of the secondary battery and AA mounts. Secondary battery survivability plus 100%, AA mount survivability plus 100%. I know some people like to take this just in general on brawling battleships, brawling secondary battleships, just to increase their secondary battery survivability alone. But I really appreciate having, I prefer the main battery and torpedo tubes since we do have torpedoes here on the Prinz Heinrich. And your AA is like, meh. If you want to play AA, usually you go for a battleship. You go for something more like a American battleship. Magazine modification 1, risk of your ship's magazine detonating, negative 70%. But we can completely limit that by taking the Juliet Charlie combat signal, which completely limits the risk of your ship's magazine detonating. Well, we should talk about this other one. You also have the Damage Control Party 1 modification. This increases the action time of your Damage Control Party and Fast Damage Control Team consumables by plus 40%. To me, I've never taken these on battleships. I just don't see the value when I'd much rather have something like guns and torpedoes, increasing the survivability of those. This would increase by plus 40%, so your action time right now is 10 seconds, so then 40%, so then what you're looking at, 14 seconds? Yeah, 14 seconds, so maybe that could be nice, but you only get a limited number of these fast damage control team parties, so I still lean more towards the traditional main armaments modification 1. For slot 2, you have 3 options. Right now you can see we have mounted the damage control system modification 1. This reduces the risk of catching fire by negative 5%, risk of flooding, negative 3%. So we're increasing our survivability a little bit here. We also have engine room protection. I actually don't think I've had my engine knocked out on the Prinz Heinrich thus far. What this does is it reduces the risk of incapacitation and accelerates repairs of the engine and steering gears in particularly. But I still lean more towards the damage control system modification 1. And then we also have the hydroacoustic search modification 1. This extends the action time of your hydroacoustic search by plus 20%. Right now our action time is 110 seconds. So if we do the math, make sure I get it right here, you would extend it by 22 seconds. So then you're looking at a grand total of 132 second action time on your hydroacoustic search. And I'd actually recommend going for this. You saw in yesterday's video, we were dealing with some destroyers who were throwing a lot of torpedoes at us. So our hydroacoustic search was really valuable, but have that extra 22 seconds would be nice. You purchase this in the armory. I would purchase it today, but I'm saving the coupon for something else, I believe. Yeah, so you purchase it for coal, 17,000 coal, but if you have this coupon, which you get once a month, it is 12,750 instead of 17,000. So I definitely recommend this, but I think I'm saving the coupon for another ship, but I don't remember what ship I'm saving it for right now. But I'd recommend that first and foremost in slot 2 of the upgrades. Slot 3, you have the main battery modification 2. This increases your main battery traverse speed. Right now, it's actually 24 seconds, 180 degree turn time, and that's really good between what we've taken on Günther Lütjens. We have greased the gears there, and 24 seconds is actually really nice. To me, yeah, you could make it faster, but what you really, really want to be taking on the Prinz Heinrich is the secondary battery modification 1. This extends your secondary battery firing range by plus 20%, and the maximum secondary battery shell dispersion, negative 20%. So you have a longer secondary battery firing range, and you have increased dispersion in a good way. So your secondaries are landing much tighter. So right now they're actually at, let's see here, 9.1. But we've come over to combat signals, and we mount this guy right here. Extends the secondary battery firing range by plus 5%. Reload time, negative 5%. Dispersion, negative 5%. So all around even better. And you can see we get our secondaries up to 9.5 kilometer with the reload time of 2.9 seconds. And then looking at these guys, these are the 150 millimeter on a different type of gun mount. 7.3 second reload time, but still the 9.5 kilometer range. So that's really what you want to be taking here on Prinz Heinrich. If you're not, I'm questioning why would you not take this? Because this is a secondary battle brawler ship, and it has some of the best secondaries at the tier 7, especially as you go up to Schlieffen at tier 10. Schlieffen is a beast with her secondaries. So, and you can see that without this, the last 2 games that are going to be at the end of this video I probably would have died not having this. So you really want this. AA Guns Modification 1. This decreases your priority AA sector preparation time. No, you still want this. And your AA is already bleh to begin with on the Prinz Heinrich. Aiming System Modification 1. We usually, typically speaking, when I don't have secondary brawling battleships, this is what I go for. But this is a secondary brawling battleship. Again, you get much more value out of this with the range and the shell dispersion. You also have Torpedo Tubes Modification 1. Wouldn't recommend taking this. It's something much more you see on a destroyer. And again, you have secondaries. Secondaries are fun. So this is what you want on the Prinz Heinrich right here. Okay, made that clear. Then you have for the 4th slot, you can see right now I have mounted the Damage Control System Modification 2. This accelerates the fire extinguishing and recovery from flooding, negative 15%. So that to me is really nice. We're increasing our survivability, our stamina in the battle. When let's say we're not using the fast damage control team, or it's just one fire ticking, or maybe this is on cooldown, right? That happened in yesterday's video as well. So that's why I've taken this to shorten the fire duration time or flooding recovering time. Propulsion Modification 1, this accelerates time taken to reach full engine power when accelerating, negative 50%. Normally you see this more on cruisers and destroyers. I know some people have run this on the Schlieffen at tier 10, but we're not talking about the Schlieffen today, we're talking about the Prinz Heinrich. Steering Gears Modification 1. Right now our maneuverability is 14.5 seconds. So you saw I didn't make the best use of the rotor shift because it takes such a long rotor shift time, where I ate that torpedo when I was trying to find that window gap. I basically didn't start countering the rotor shift in time, and that cost us. We ate a torpedo. So it's this is probably, I think it's standard what you find at tier 7 among other battleships. King George might be no, the King George is actually a little worse. Sometimes it's just nice to see what other ships have. A little better. I don't have high expectations for Colorado, but Colorado is actually even better. So it's kind of it's there. It's standard, I would say. But I really still appreciate the damage control system modification 2. And then you have Airstrike Modification 1, and you're not always seeing submarines, especially if you get solid Tier 7 matchmaking. There's no Tier 7 subs in the game at this point in time. So, this is what you want. Okay, let's talk about the consumables. So, you have the fast damage control team. What is different about these than the standard damage control teams is that the action time is shorter, but the reload time is much quicker. So the action time is 10 seconds, reload time is 40 seconds. So in comparison to, let's say, the Geyser now, you can see action time 15 seconds, reload time of 80 seconds. So basically the cost is just, it's twofold. Your action time is less, which is bad. It's a nerf. But your reload time is 40 seconds instead of a standard 80 seconds. And you only get a limited number of consumables, right? Where Geyser now it's unlimited, as an example. These are nice in terms of brawling and getting really close up in the enemy's face when you're fighting. So having these on Prinz Heinrich, I much prefer versus the standard on the Geyser now that you'll find. But you also have to understand how to manage your fast damage control team versus on other battleships. So there's a little bit more of a challenge here. You have to find a good balance for it, especially for the fact that instead of getting 4 heals standard, like when we come over here on Geyser now, and I don't have, what is that skill? Emergency Repair Expert, we get additional one. You start off with less. You only get 3. So your repair parties become a little bit more precious. But if you are too hesitant in using these, you may die and then like, oh, I still had like 2 charges of this and another charge of this. So it's a little bit trickier to walk the line with these. But when we look at the repair party, you can see the HP per second is plus 281. If we throw on another combat signal, you can see 337. So you want to be able to take that India Delta combat signal, and that increases how much repair party repairs you're able to have on your ship. And again, you saw in yesterday's video and the other one earlier this past week become very handy in having the India Delta combat signal flag mounted. Then you have the hydroacoustic search. I misspoke yesterday. I think I had said 5.5 kilometer on the detection of ships. After this line came out, Wargaming nerfed it slightly. Let me check, make sure that's true. We can do that together here, right? So let's look at Schlieffen. Okay, Schlieffen is 5.5. I think it used to be 6 on Schlieffen, and maybe I'm wrong on the Prinz Heinrich. I'll never claim to know everything. Maybe it's always been 5 kilometer on the Prinz Heinrich because it's a tier 7 battleship. But I know they did nerf the hydroacoustic search. On the German Battlecruisers, I just don't know, can't remember which ones they did it to in decreasing that range. So, but this is very handy. You can see detection of torpedoes 3.5 kilometers away, detection of ships 5 kilometers away. So again, this is nice, and you can extend the action time by taking the hydroacoustic search modification 1, which I would recommend doing here on the Prinz Heinrich. But just saving my coal in the coupon for another special upgrade. Let's go ahead and look at the commander. So we have Günther Lütjens. He is a very, very good commander to have on a German battleship. If you're wondering where you get him, well, let's just show you real quick. You obtain Lütjens in the armory for 175,000 coal, which is a lot, but once you start playing the game long enough, it doesn't take very long for you to earn him. What he has going on him is actually quite good. He has the talents Resilient, so each time you spot 3 enemy ships, your ship's HP gets restored. The talent's action time measured in seconds is equal to the ship's tier. HP per second plus 300, so then tier 7 times 3, 2,100, okay? Then you have main battery loader. This is something you see that this talent activates more on a cruiser. Can be activated once per battle, hitting enemy ships 140 times with the main battery shells. reduces the main battery reload time by negative 7.5%. Typically, again, this is something you see that takes place on German cruisers much more often than you'll see on a battleship like Prinz Heinrich. It'd be really hard to pull this off just because she only has 8 guns with that 30-second reload time. And then you have this, which you saw again in the last 2 videos that I was able to activate this talent. It's the secondary battery loader. Can be activated once per battle. Hitting enemy ships 100 times with secondary battery shell reduces the secondary battery reload time by negative 15%. So really, really good talent to have, especially on this German battlecruiser line. You also get aerial equipment expert. So this would be something that you would see on carrier. Can be activated once per battle. Hitting enemy ships 30 times with any aircraft armament speeds up the preparation of the air squadron. Squadron preparation time, negative 10%. So he can even be used on aircraft carriers with this skill, which I think is not too hard to achieve that talent since it's 30 times with any aircraft armaments. He also has the enhanced skills, which we have on the Prinz Heinrich. Grease the gears, plus 25% on a battleship, rather than the standard 20% time. We also have preventative maintenance. Standard for a battleship is negative 30%, but here we have it as negative 45%. So this helps keep our main turrets, our torpedo tubes, steering gears, and engine from becoming incapacitated. And it's because these are strengths of Lütjens, especially when you're brawling, getting close quarters combat. I really like having these skills mastered on Lütjens. You also have improved engine boost. Again, this would be aircraft carrier. Squadron engine boost duration, 7.5%. I don't know what the standard is. Maybe it's 5%. I just don't really play carriers. So this is where you find Lütjens at in the armory. So let's go ahead and talk about the skills. So this is when I do these skills, I'm recommending from a 1 point all the way up to 21 point. So if I stop at like a 10 point or 14 point, that's know that, oh, I only have a 14-point commander, then just build up to where I'm showing as an example if you want to go that route. But there's a few things we can do here with the commander, so let's just hop into it. So we first have taken preventive maintenance. As we just discussed, reduces the risk of your main turrets, torpedo tubes, steering gears, and engine from becoming incapacitated by negative 45%. Then we've taken grease the gears. Our main battery traverse speed is plus 25% rather than the standard 20%. So this would be a 3-point commander. I first have gone for a full secondary build. So we have long range secondary battery shells. This extends our secondary battery firing range by the plus 20%, which you see referenced here in the 9.5 kilometer. And then we've also taken manual secondary battery aiming. So this has the permanent effect of reload time, negative 10%, maximum secondary battery shell dispersion, negative 10%, and then time taken to reach maximum efficiency of negative 50%. On top of that is 45 seconds. And you just, when you're doing manual firing control, you press left control and then your left mouse key, left mouse button. So again, this is what saved us in yesterday's video. And so this is just, it's a really good skill to have. So this is what I'd recommend going on a 10-point build on Prinz Heinrich. Right now, things can change a lot very quickly from here, depending on what type of build you want to do for your Prinz Heinrich. For the 14-point build, I've gone for Fire Prevention Expert. Our risk of catching fire is reduced by negative 10%. Maximum number of fires, -1. So what fire prevention does, maybe you're like, yo, Flimsy, I never get 4 fires on my ship. Why would I need this? It's the placement of those fires. So right now, without fire prevention, you would have a fire on your bow, one on the forward power superstructure, one on the rear power superstructure, and then one on the stern. Fire prevention takes these 2 fires and only makes it 1 fire, which means you're eating less damage. Now, this is kind of where things can change quickly in terms of the commander build, if you take fire prevention or not. Prinz Heinrich in this line, or let's just say Prinz Heinrich, doesn't have a huge superstructure. It's actually rather small. But a lot of ships in the game, especially the HE spammers, they're often just focusing on your superstructure. So having fire prevention is nice, so you don't get just 2 fires burning on you. That I may have died yesterday as an example and not claimed a victory in that battle if not having fire prevention. I don't know that for sure. But some people actually start not taking fire prevention expert on this battle cruiser line because of those fast damage control teams that you get. But I have taken it so far, and I found I like it on the Prinz Heinrich. I really do. So that's a 14-point build. So that leaves us with 7 more points to go. So let's talk about the concealment real quick. Okay, so when we talk about concealment expert, right now it's 15 kilometers, but we do not have a camouflage on our ship. So let's just throw the bronze on. And now our ship detectability range by sea is 14.6. Okay. Your secondaries on Prinz Heinrich, unlike something like the Schlieffen, is 9.6 kilometers, or 9.5, excuse me, versus something like the Schlieffen, which I think it's 12.5, 12.6. So you still have a noticeably large gap between when your secondaries start firing and your concealment. So I do not intend to take concealment on Prinz Heinrich. You can see most of the fighting I've done in those videos was all close quarters combat in ranked, both of those being ranked matches. So for Prinz Heinrich, I wouldn't recommend taking concealment experts. If you did, it gets you down to 13.1, which at tier 7, it's nice. It's nice to be able to get down to 13.1 and a detectability range by air being at 8.7. It's just not for me. What I would recommend with a 18-point commander is the emergency repair expert. Okay, so the action time of the damage control party consumable is plus 10%. So that means we go from 10 seconds to 11 seconds. And instead of having 4 damage control teams, now we have 5. Also another really good thing. The repair party consumable action time goes up by plus 10%. And then the number of repair party consumable charges plus 1. So then we go from 3 to 4. I really think this is a must for this line. Again, referencing those 2 other ranked matches, we burnt through all of our heals. So maybe we've been able to heal back a little bit more health if we would have had a 4th repair party. But we don't know because we didn't have it. Sometimes when you're fighting close quarters combat, your health pool can diminish very quickly, and maybe you wouldn't even get to use to your 4th one. However, my playstyle is when I'm playing these secondary brawling battleships, I'm playing a little bit more at range first, and then closing the distance. And ranked, you can close the distance kind of early into the battle, as my playstyle is I like to try to be alive the last half of the battle, where that's really where the key factors and who wins in the battle decisions get made. After that, I'd recommend going for Adrenaline Rush. Adrenaline Rush is nice because it enhances the ship parameters for each 1% of our HP loss. Our main battery is going to start reloading faster. Our torpedo tube reload time is going to load faster. Our secondary battery load time is going to load faster. Our continuous AA damage gets a buff. But you become that much more potent in your close quarters combat, where maybe that extra second becomes really handy. As you can see, you haven't had it mastered yet. I have 3 points already I could use right now, and I don't know if I'm going to go for Adrenaline Rush first or if I'd just go ahead and pick up the Emergency Repair Expert, because I kind of like maybe saving up and getting 14 points first here on Lütjens to pick this up. Okay, so we're getting really close and running on time here. Something else you could do this is the most aggressive build I can think of if you wanted to run this on Prinz Heinrich. This is the close quarters combat. So increases the reload speed of the main battery after an enemy ship has been spotted within the firing range of your ship's secondary battery. Main battery reload time, negative 10%. Okay, so let's say you're full health, and instead of having a 30-second reload time, you instantly have a 27-second reload time. You stack that on top with Adrenaline Rush, then you can give it down to 25-second reload time on Prinz Heinrich, just depending on how much health you've lost. So this is a very aggressive build here with the Prinz Heinrich. And then there's also something else we need to talk about, and that is the IFHE here on the line. I don't think of this skill being as much of a major factor at tier 7, but hear me out. We're about to wrap up the video. So right now, when we look at the armor penetration capacity of our secondary battery, okay, first let's look at the 105mm guns here. Armor penetration capacity, 26mm, okay? A lot of battleships, I think here at tier 7, have more of the 26mm armor. Oh, wrong one. I need to get to armor layout. I just want to show you this real quick, okay? I have to illustrate this or you'll be asking me questions. 26mm. So that means right now we can pin the bow and stern of a King George. 26mm even up here on the upper deck. If we go over to something like the Nelson, another example, armor layout, 26mm, and then actually 32mm. So that means we can't pin the mid-hull section, the armor belt of a Nelson because it has 32mm, but we can pin the 26mm here with those 105mm guns. Going over to, let's just show the Colorado as an example. It's covered in 26mm, okay? So you're actually kind of fine right now with the Prinz Heinrich in having that armor pin capacity at 26 millimeters for the 105mm guns. But if you, for example, were bottom tiered, then you're going to see, like versus tier 8s, tier 9s, in random battles, you're going to start seeing a lot more, or ranked, tier 7, tier 8. Well, actually, no, that goes into a different category. Random battles, then you're going to start seeing a lot more 26mm. So when you take the IFHE, you are now pinning 32mm of armor. The 150mm guns right now can pin 38. These fire only every 7.3 seconds, where these fire every 2.9 seconds. But right now, we could pin the midsection of a Nelson as an example that has that 32mm because these can pin 38. Now, taking that, it actually boosts us all the way up to 47mm armor penetration capacity with the 150mm guns. What the downside is when you take this is that you get this nerf on the chances of causing a fire by HE shells without modifiers applied are reduced by half. So you can see we go to 2.5% instead of having 5% originally. Then here we can see we get cut down from 10% to 5%, right? And then instead of having 35%, we get cut down to 17.5%. But we are being able to pin 32mm now with our 105mm, and it can pin all the way up to 47mm. Okay, so then you take IFHE, and then I would say you could take the Emergency Repair Expert, and then maybe that's when you drop Grease the Gears, and then you pick up Adrenaline Rush, okay? That is the other kind of big build you can do with the Prinz Heinrich, and this becomes increasingly more of an option to do when you get up to the Schlieffen, just because you are at that point facing ships that are constantly covered in 32mm, where you don't see so many that have the 27mm plating, maybe more cruisers, something like that. That type of build, drop Grease the Gears, pick up Adrenaline Rush, that type of build you see much more at the higher tiers because of the armor thresholds you're seeing. But here at tier 7, with the Prinz Heinrich, if you're building up Designated Commander for the Prinz Heinrich, I would recommend just something like this. This would be my first recommendation. If you really, really want the 32mm pin capacity, then just drop Grease the Gears, pick up IFHE. Or if you want to do a super aggressive build, you could do this, and then maybe even drop the Grease the Gears and pick up IFHE, and you have something like this going. But because you only get a limited number of repair parties and damage control teams, that's why I think this skill is really valuable. Okay, so we've kind of gone longer than I wanted to, I like to try to keep these under 30 minutes, but there's just a little bit more going on with this German Battlecruiser line, especially as you start hitting the tier 8s, tier 9s, and tier 10s. But that is the type of build I'd recommend for Prinz Heinrich, and you have seen so far how it's paid off for me. So if you have questions regarding a skill I didn't talk about, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you're running on your Prinz Heinrich. I'm really excited to go up this line and how I'll end up utilizing a German commander with Schiefen in mind and Lütjens in mind, because I'll probably be respecting Lütjens once I get up to Schlieffen. But for now, this is what I've been rocking out on the Prinz Heinrich, and it's proved to be really good. So if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you did not, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you are subscribed, thanks so much. I really appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.